Fires one towards the goal. That's going to be gloved by Travis Ridgen. Well, this is more like it.
This is Slangin The Bizkit. Here's Travis Ridgen and Dave Wheeler.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome you back to the Slangin The Bizkit podcast. This is going to be episode 35. I'm joined by somebody who is a personal friend of mine. I've been trying to get him on the podcast for almost going on 2 years now. We're finally able to make it happen. He's a very busy man located somewhere in Michigan that I don't know exactly where it is. He holds the record for most shutouts at Michigan Tech University NCAA Division I. He was as close as you can get to playing games in the National League without actually playing them. He had his entire phone bill racked up by Dustin Byfuglien during the Jets playoff run of 2017. His name is Jamie Phillips. Welcome to the Slangin The Bizkit podcast, episode 35, my friend.
Thanks for having me on. I got to say right now, my records, all but one of them have been smashed by my starting goalie here at Michigan Tech. So I wish I could claim that I still had those, but he's crushed them.
Well, there you go. There's more evidence that I didn't do any research before doing this intro to start the episode.
Yeah, some friend.
I'm trying my best, but Jamie's been a friend of mine for years. Really excited to share an awesome conversation. We're going to be talking about just some bullshit going on in the goalie community, myths, misinformation, what actually is required to be a legitimate goaltender. We're going to talk about some stories from his playing days at Michigan Tech, the Moose, the Jets, you name it. But yeah, I'm really excited to be sharing this first. But I want to know, who exactly is Jamie Phillips in your words?
Oh, that's a good question. So who is Jamie Phillips? So I'm a former professional goalie, played 4 years professional. Before that, played Division I hockey. I retired from pro once COVID hit, went back to school, got my master's in kinesiology and integrative physiology, and I am officially 1 year away from being Dr. Jamie Phillips with a doctorate of physical therapy. And I'm a goalie coach, strength coach. I wear way too many hats, man.
I want to start things off with a little story. I know you told me this before when, from one of the first moments we met, we talked about this until now, just to kind of get people in the door. It's a story about Dustin Byfuglien, Jets playoffs. You want to open us up with that one first before we get into the meat and potatoes today?
Yeah, so I was a Black Ace, my first time being a Black Ace, and we were flying to Minnesota, so for the first round of playoffs. And so we had got on the plane, and in playoffs, they travel with all the media guys, so there's no extra seats. And like big time show guys like Byfuglien and like those guys, they get 2 seats. So there's only one spot in the plane with 2 seats, and it's beside Buff. And if anyone knows me, I'm confident, but I'm also not. Like I understand like the pecking order in a lot of these things. And so I sit down beside Buff. He's not happy because 1, he's sick. 2, he has to sit beside an absolute peasant like myself. And of course, it's like, hey, well, you know what? It's a 40-minute flight. It's fine. It's going to be on and off, Jamie. Don't worry. Just don't touch anything. Just keep your head down. Do your thing. Turns out we fly. It's a snowstorm going on in Minnesota. So we end up circling around Minneapolis for about 2 hours. Then we have to fly back to Duluth. And then we sit in the runway in Duluth for 5 hours. And so what should have been a 45-minute flight is now 7 hours of me just absolute pure anxiety. And then to make it even worse is Buff's like, hey, my phone died. Can I use yours? I want to watch like fishing or whatever because he's a big fisherman. And at the time, like I didn't have unlimited data because I was up and down so much that I just kept my American plan. So in Canada, like it was going to cost an absorbent amount. So here's my phone, just crushed all the like half a gig I had available. And then I had to like make up some excuse of why I needed my phone back just because, I wasn't making NHL money. So I can't be paying $1,000 phone bill. But it was a long 7 hours. I can tell you that.
What was the excuse you gave him to get your phone back?
I think it was something. I think I was just like, my girlfriend's probably getting worried or something. Probably something super lame.
Yeah, you might give me my phone back. I got to text the old lady for the next 8 hours. You can't watch fishing anymore. Sorry.
Oh yeah, it's like I'm naturally like a sweaty guy too. So like I think I just sweat right through my suit or whatever I was wearing.
Now, you said there's only one extra seat beside Buff. So you walk in, but like, did you take it upon yourself to pick that seat, or did you look around and somebody said, "Oh, there's a seat by Buff"? How did that go down?
No, it was like the classic, like you know when you watch a movie and like someone's anxiety, like the hallway just gets longer and longer. Like that's what the plane was like. And then I wanted to sit at the front with the media guys, and they're like, "No, I go to the back or with Buff." And I thought they were joking. And I go back, and then all of a sudden, all the guys are just like, "Oh," and they're giving you the business, and they're giving it to Buff, and then he's got a head cold. So no one's happy when they're sick. And it was just like, it was so painful. Surprised I don't have PTSD from that.
That's amazing. Did Buff say anything to you? Like, you sit down, he kind of gives you like the dirty eyeball, and then you kind of go back to business, or?
No, like Buff's actually like a really, really good guy. Like, keeps to himself, quiet. So he gave me a hard time at the start because I just don't think he wanted me to sit there. I don't blame him. But as it went on, like, he relaxed. But just in my own head, the damage was already done, and there was no recovering.
He's got like his leg on the second seat. He's got his backpack on his arm like this, trying to give you the hint, like, don't sit here. You're not welcome here. But if you ask, obviously, like, he'll move everything over for you. Yeah,
basically, you should just like, hey, you want me to like, give you a massage or get you an ice pack or water? Like, what do you need, man?
I'll tape your sticks, Mr. Byfuglien. How would you like it done? Medium rare for dinner as well?
Yeah. I can't afford those steaks.
You're like the shoe shining guy at the airport. So they like shine your shoes for $20. You sit up on like the golden throne. They shine your shoes exactly like that for the Winnipeg Jets in the 2018 playoff run. Huh?
Yeah, I'm not a baller. I can't afford to get my shoe signed like you, man.
Hey, we're working on it. I know you've had a lot of success in the goalie community over the last couple of years, which is awesome to kind of see, because like we've known each other for, I think, going on 3 years, maybe. Actually, no, I think it's longer than that. Almost 4 years ago, we met online. I don't know if you remember it. So how Jamie and I met, he's playing for the Manitoba Moose at the time. Obviously, I'm born and raised in Winnipeg. Him and I were following each other for whatever reason. And I remember I was looking for Moose tickets online. I couldn't find any. And so I sent you a burner, just like a little flare out there on Instagram messages. Hey, man, you have any idea where I could find some tickets, because I couldn't find any? Now, I don't think I looked very hard, to be honest with you, or at all. And you said, yeah, sure. Yeah, here's 2 tickets. Bring whoever you want. So you gave me my old man tickets to a Moose playoff game. Didn't get to watch you play. We got to see Eric Comrie, starting goalie for the Buffalo Sabres, or backup now for the Sabres, start against the Rockford Ice Hogs, and Colin Delia, now for the Vancouver Canucks. Any other recollections that I'm missing here?
No, actually, I don't. I think I told you this. I don't remember, but the first time I guess I didn't meet you. The first time I saw you, so you know that like underground like tunnel walk from the Fairmount to the rink in Winnipeg.
Yep.
There's like a Tim Hortons down there, and so this probably would have been either like a development camp or one of the main camps. Probably a development camp. But I was at Tim Hortons getting my morning breakfast, and you were sitting there with just some lady. And I recognized you because that was just when you started to become popular on YouTube and started to make like more personal content. It wasn't just like sick goalie compilation saves. And I saw you, and I was like, I think that's Trav for Oilers. And I was like, I kind of want to introduce myself and be like, hey man, like I really like your videos. And I just got scared. So you starstruck me the first time I would have saw you, and then after that, yeah, you DM'd me, you cold called me, and I just said, sure, here's some tickets, man. I mean, I got 2 every game, so it's no sweat off my back. I don't have any family or friends in Winnipeg, so it was if you wanted them, they were yours.
Yeah, not many people do have friends and family in Winnipeg. That's amazing. So you saw me dicing it up at Tim Hortons first thing in the morning. What time was that ish?
Must have been like 7 or 8 in the morning, because we would have been on our way just to get to the rink to get like our dynamic and stuff in before ice. And that would have had to been a development camp, because either that or the main camp, because we were staying at the Fairmont and not the Delta.
This is a true story. I actually have a friend who's still in Winnipeg. Shout out to him, Chris Peters. He used to coordinate like meeting NHL players. So he had a friend who worked head of air traffic control, like for like the Winnipeg airport. So like they knew every plane that was coming in, coming out. Like tell you, hey, the Bird's coming in 2:00. The Rangers will be here by 4. And so he would get that information, and we go from there. And that's how we meet players by the Fairmont. We meet. Oh, God. Simeon Varlamov, Michael Hutchinson, Roberto Luongo, Dubnik, all these guys. Rene, Fleury, all these guys. So it was probably something along those lines. If it was early in the morning, I don't think he got up before 1, so I was probably chopping it up with somebody early in the morning at Timmy Ho's. But yeah, that's interesting. You never told me that story. I don't think you've ever told me that before.
I think we did the first time you skated with Booge, but you were so Hollywood, it just went in one ear and out the other. But actually, that's when you say that, the people that work at the Winnipeg airport are legitimately the nicest human beings in the entire world. So like my last year with the Jets and organization, I was called between the coast, the A, and the show. I was called up and sent down 14 times. Like I was a regular at that airport. And so like every time I'd come in, people would recognize me. They would know my name. They would say, hello, Mr. Phillips, how are you doing? And then when I get sent down, like they knew I was getting sent down. Like I was upset things like weren't happy, and there was like my bag was always overweight. They just wave it, like sticks, everything. Honestly, shout out to everyone at the Winnipeg airport, because you may not think about it, but just those like nice, kind gestures when like I was going through like hard times of getting called up and sent down, it goes like a long way. Like being a good person goes a long way. So the people at the Winnipeg airport, best people.
That's amazing. Have you ever been on the hug rug before?
No, what's that?
So the hug rug is this giant rug, kind of like the size of my apartment here, and they have it right when you walk down the staircase at the airport. So like when you've landed and you come into like the baggage area, it's this big giant blue rug that says the hug rug. And you're supposed to hug people and you're supposed to take pictures on it. It went away for the COV, but now it's back.
Has it always been there?
Always been there, giant. You cannot miss the hug rug.
I think like you need people to like want to hug you in order to go to the hug rug. So no, I didn't know that was there.
No. You're flying private. You're on the charter. That's why you don't go through that entrance. You come through the other one. You'd never see the hug rug otherwise. Peasants like me, when you fly economy class, you see it.
When you play in the cheese toast, man, you do not fly private.
So I'm curious while we're on the topic. So you're with the Jets and or the Moose and or the Jacksonville Icemen and or the Florida Everblades, et cetera, not to rub it in. But so you get called up or sent down. So they send you to the Winnipeg airport. You fly Air Canada, just like a normal peasant, or like give me the breakdown from start to finish, how you go and how you end.
So it really depends for the most part. So let's just say, let's go back to like probably my most tumultuous year, which would have been in Jacksonville. So I just got a call. Hey, we're calling you up. Either you're flying to whatever city the Moose are in, or you're getting called back to Manitoba, and get in the airport, Jacksonville to either Chicago or Minneapolis, it depends. And then sometimes you have to stay overnight because there wasn't a connecting flight, and then you get your connection. So you just fly normal air, nothing fancy, nothing crazy, like no first class or anything. It's just, it's a cost-effective thing. You're not a superstar, so there's no reason to break the bank, and I understand that. And to be honest, like, it's just accept it. Like everyone thinks that playing pro hockey is like, no matter the level, it's just this like gravy train you're on. So I think one thing that you do really well is when you talk about like the Fed and your experience and like the spill and stuff, is you do open a lot of eyes to the experience and how it's not all like cupcakes and rainbows. I can't even say sunshine. Cupcakes and rainbows. And it is a grind.
Airplanes.
Yeah, it is a grind. And so I think that's really important, because you'll get people that will be like, oh, you're playing pro hockey, you should be like, how can you ever say, like, complain about it? Be like, man, if you ever sat on a 4-foot bunk from Tulsa, Oklahoma to Charleston, South Carolina for 22 hours and you're 6'4", yeah, you're going to complain because your back is broken.
Oh, the back's broken, the cam hip impingement's at its worst. And you got these little short guys. Like if you're under 6 feet and traveling pro hockey, you are living the dream. So for those that don't know, most of us travel by bus, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. But for those that don't know, so if you're a short guy, you would sleep on the floor of the bus, so either across the seats or in between the actual aisle, right? And that's one of the benefits of being short, is that you can fit, there's no problems. As a big guy, whether I go no matter what way, it doesn't fit. So the only way that I can sleep is kind of like a sloth, when, if you can see here, you kind of like get the feet kind of going up like this. That's really the only way to sleep on the bus. Or, actually, this is the greatest story I've ever seen or heard of. So Ian White, NHL vet, good friend of mine from Winnipeg, he's playing with me in Motor City this year, and he says, man, these buses, they kind of suck, eh? As he's got like a chew in. And he says, I'm going to build my own seat. And I'm like, build your own seat? Like, we're paying $4,000 a day for this bus. What kind of seat are you going to build? So he goes to the Rona, or the Home Hardware, whatever it was in Detroit, gets, an air nailer, gets like the screwdriver gun, all this timber and everything, and builds a bed. So he builds the bed that covers 2 seats, and he's got the whole like bed frame set up. He's got like a little mattress on there, and he just made his own bed setup in the bus. That's National League right there.
Hey, you got to do what you got to do. I can say that when I was a rookie, I was a starting goalie in the Coast. So I was fortunate enough that I didn't have to sleep on the floor, but I did get the smallest bunk. So that was the trade-off.
So you guys did sleep on the floor on the Coast your rookie year?
Oh yeah, that's just part of it. It sucks, but it's part of it.
It's amazing. I gotta ask though, after the Anders Lindback fight, did you get upgraded to the beds, like the whole bed to yourself, or?
No. After getting punched in the face and not being able to take my glove off, I did not get upgraded. If anything, I should have called the Bauer rep and been like, why is this glove so sturdy and stable? I needed it to be a little bit more loose.
You want to give me the story, the whole breakdown on that? Because I know, Booj and I made fun of you all summer last year about the not being able to get your glove off, and then Anders Lindback speed backing you. But why don't you tell the story in your own words here?
So we had beat, it was either game was over or almost over against Milwaukee, and he was getting into it, and it was turning into a line brawl. And so I just said it inched my way closer and closer to their end, and I wanted to square up. Essentially, I wanted to square up because, I don't know, I've never been in a goalie fight before. I feel like if you should square up respectfully if you're going to fight somebody. And he decided that rushing me was the best play, and he was right. And so he shed his stuff, and I could only shed my blocker because I do my gloves so incredibly tight that I couldn't whip it off. No matter what would happen, I couldn't whip it off. So I'd have to use two hands. And so I had to grab him with my left hand and my right hand, and I am a righty, so there's no way I could throw punches. So I couldn't really throw any punches with my glove. And then I had to just punch him in the jaw. So it was embarrassing. And I know on Instagram, everyone was like, oh, why didn't you take off your glove? You think I didn't want to take off my glove? You think I wanted to get punched in the face? No, it just, you know what? Bauer just makes really good gear, man. I don't know what to tell you. I couldn't shed it.
I was trying my best. I just couldn't do it.
I just couldn't do it. And so, like I said, I would have loved to have just squared up. If I go back in time, I would have just squared up, or I guess lost my stuff right away. But I would have liked to have squared up because it kind of would have been, it was my only fight, and I think I would have had a fair shot if I went at it. But you know what? Note to anyone else who's going to get in a goalie fight, if you just rush, you have the upper hand.
No, I'm going to potentially set myself up for a little bit of embarrassment here if I do get into a fight in the Fedzino next season. It doesn't work out. Although I've taken heat for it, I found the best angle of attack for a goalie fight is to throw your gloves at the guy. So as you're coming, you drop the stick down, take the mask off, but when you have the blocker and glove, throw them at them, and it startles them. They're like, oh my God, these things are flying at me, and they're stunned. And then you grab them, and then you kind of go to town. That's what I found is the most effective way to do things, especially when you're weighing in right now. I'm weighing almost 233 as of this morning, so don't tell Booj.
Oh, 233, big boy. Well, you know what? I'm looking forward to seeing you like Spider-Man web throw those gloves at somebody.
Who knows, man? Anything can happen in the Feds. We talk about that all the time after practice. Is like if a guy rushes you, what are you gonna do? Like seriously, what do you do as a goaltender who's going to fight a player? Well, you just kind of hope for the best. You got to throw things at them. You got to slew foot them, toss the elbows, the shoulder in there, any limbs, any body parts, anything goes in the Fedzino.
Hey man, I'm glad you're there and not me. I'll tell you that.
The presenting sponsor for today's show, the Daily Wire Plus. They have this incredible collection, the Jordan Peterson Mastering Life collection. They sponsored last week's show. They're back again. Seriously great watch. And if you just go to the Daily Wire Plus, you get their entire catalog of podcasts, whether it's my favorite right now is Matt Walsh's "Am I a Racist?" I love that one.
Haven't seen it yet. It's on my watch list.
It's the top of the list. Also, his "What Is a Woman" is fantastic.
I've seen that one.
They got the Ben Shapiro show. They have so many shows on Daily Wire Plus. Highly recommend it. And we talked last week in depth about getting the most as a man, managing your marriage, managing relationships, negotiating the art of the deal. All that is in JP Jordan Peterson's Mastering Life collection. Dave and I couldn't recommend it enough. We're so excited and so proud to have the Daily Wire Plus on the podcast. And right now, if you go to the link in the video description on the YouTube show, click on that link, use the code BIZKIT30, BIZKIT 30. You're going to get 30% off your subscription from the Daily Wire Plus. And again, thank you so much to them for joining the show, and we are so proud to have them on.
Yeah, and I have a funny story to build off that. So again, otherwise, I'm just a peasant. So black acing again, probably the same trip. This would have been when we got to Minnesota. Sitting in the front of the bus, obviously, where I belong. And Patrick Laine goes to sit down beside Helly because they're big, like Clash of Clans guys or whatever people play on their phones. And he puts down like a black Louis Vuitton duffel bag, and he just looks at me and goes, "10K, don't touch." I just sit there like, what did you think I was going to do? Kick it? But what I want to build off that is, so like sometimes like, for those that don't know, physical therapy school is incredibly hard and it's miserable. And I 10 out of 10 do not recommend it. So there are days where motivation is lacking. And so what I did was like, I had that, like if you want to know that Michael Jordan documentary where he just like makes things up in his head to find motivation. I went and I bought a knockoff Louis Vuitton replica of that bag. And so it sits in my closet, and every time I wake up, I see it, and it just reminds me of how much of a loser I felt during that moment. And it gets me out of bed, and if I don't want to study or I don't want to do work, I look at that and I go, Jamie, you are going to earn that one day. You're going to have a real one, and Patrick Laine is not going to get the best of you. And that's dead serious. I'll send you a picture of that bag when I get home, and you can throw it. You could paste that on the YouTube video. But I'm dead serious about that. And that for me, that's like my Michael Jordan moment where I just like have to make it up in order to just like find motivation.
And the question I'm wondering, everybody else is asking: did you touch the bag? Did you pick it up? Kind of feel how heavy it was? Try to guess an idea what was inside of it?
No, I mean, I'm not a bad guy, but it was just kind of a weird thing to say. Like, I'm not, what do you think I'm going to take your bag? I'm on your team, man. Like, we're on a bus.
Where am I going to go?
Yeah, to the back with Buff.
Yeah, did you hear Jamie's already got it listed on eBay? Starting bid's 99 cents, shipping $700.
Oh, yeah.
That's how they get you, man. The shipping will get you every single time.
Shipping does get you, man. Not if you, yeah. Oh, well, I'm a peasant.
That's okay. Serious conversation piece here. I wanted to know. So you were drafted in the first ever draft for the Winnipeg Jets, I believe. It was 2012? No, sorry, second draft,
Yeah,
correct?
second draft.
Okay, so you're drafted by the Winnipeg Jets. Conversations at the draft, conversations up leading to when they told you, hey, we've drafted you. What was that like?
Yeah, it's not as like traditional. Everyone thinks like, oh, you go to the combine, you have this sick experience and stuff. So I was playing in BC, the BCHL, and then I just committed to Michigan Tech over Christmas. I went back to BC, and the coach told me that, he was upset that I'd committed for the next year. He told me he was no longer going to play me anymore. They were going to play my goalie partner since he was going to BU, and it's a bigger school, and he wanted him to represent the program more than me. So I had to ask for a trade. So I ended up getting traded.
Can I ask, name the coach?
Nah, I'm not going to do it. You can go on HockeyDB and figure that out.
Okay, this is the Salmon Arm River Kings, right?
No, Powell River Kings.
Powell River. Okay, somebody can check it up on Elite Prospects, but carry on. Sorry for interrupting.
And so that sucked. So I was traded to Toronto in the OJ. So not as strong of a league. So I was pretty disappointed, but it is what it is. So I got there, and we weren't a great team. But I ended up playing very well in playoffs. I think the shots against average was like high 60s. My goals against was like in the threes, in the low threes. So I was making like a lot of saves. And it just so happened that someone from the NHL scouting was there and saw and really liked my game and threw me on the list. And then the Jets kind of called me one day and said, hey, like, if you're sticking around, we're going to draft you. Are you coming to the draft? I said no, because no one else has talked to me. And they, for whatever reason, drafted me in the last round of the draft that year. So I was drafted with the OJ. Hindsight being what it is, probably the worst thing for my career was getting drafted. And you don't think that. It's hard. Like most people be like, oh, you just want to get drafted. If you're going to college, the last thing you want to do is be drafted. And because an NHL team has your rights your entire college career. And then when you graduate, you don't become a free agent until August of that year, when everyone else is becoming free agents in July. And so you're at a huge disadvantage. That's why you'll see guys like, every time, who's that guy? The guy in the Rangers there that was at Harvard, who's told whatever, Nashville or whatever.
Oh, Jimmy Vesey.
Yeah, Jimmy Vesey, like told Nashville he wasn't coming or whatever. And so like, for me, when I was in college, my last 2 years, I was very good. I was in the top 5 of just goalies across the league. But no one from other teams really paid any attention because I was drafted, and everyone assumed that the Jets were going to sign me. And so once my season was over, my senior year, I'd called my agent, and I was like, okay, like when am I going to sign? Like I just want to go to the coast and play some games here and get my feet wet. And the Jets had just said straight up, we're not going to sign you. And so then I was like, okay, well and then I was like, okay, well, who else am I going to sign with? And he's like, well, to be honest, there's not a lot of options because everyone that called about you just figured that you were going to sign with the Jets. So I was kind of left empty-handed, and it was a tough time because I had to decide if I wanted to keep playing. So I was really close to signing an American League deal with Texas. That was kind of my backup plan. And I was told myself I was going to play for maybe 1 or 2 years and then just straight up retire after that, because it was really like disheartening to be like one of the best goalies in college hockey for 2 years straight and then just have a team that basically handcuffed you, say they didn't want you. Ultimately, they did end up signing me, but it was more out of a point of like filling a spot rather than like being a hot prospect. And so it's really tough. And you don't like, I think about these things now more that I'm a few years removed from playing. But in the moment, you don't think like that. You're just like, okay, show deal, opportunity, let's go. But hockey's a business, and it doesn't always work out as well as you want, especially at those high levels. So, like getting drafted, like I said, if you're a college guy, don't worry about not being drafted. It's way better for you to not be drafted because you have 4 years to sign with whoever you want if you pop off and play well.
That's tough. So would you say it's pretty fair to say that the Jets draft you kind of sandbagged you and set you up for not necessarily failure, but like a tougher route once you did finally get into pro, despite being one of the top 5 goalies in the NCAA?
Oh, 100%. And I'm not the only one, so it's not unique to me. There's actually one of the guys I played with, Cliff Watson, was drafted by San Jose. Same thing. This happens like quite a bit. And if I wasn't drafted, I probably would have signed after my junior year with a team that was like, hey, Phillips, you're really good. We want you, like, come play. And just that mentality of a team seeing you and wanting you makes so much more of a difference in terms of opportunity and development. And so that's like a really important thing. So yeah, like ultimately was the worst thing for my career was getting drafted. And like if you had told 19-year-old Jamie that, he would have thought you were a crazy person. But 30-year-old Jamie, he knows these things now.
No, I'm curious. Like, you're a big dude. It's 6'4", almost 6'5". Like, you have all these assets in your favor. Do you think it's because, like, they had at the time, correct me if I'm wrong, Pavlik, Hutchinson, another big guy, Hellebuck was already drafted. Like, you have all these guys already in line. It's like, why do we need another one?
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. But that's sports. Like, that's the problem with, everyone thinks like when you sign that it's like, oh, this is smooth sailing. So for some people, it is smooth sailing. And yes, you have to perform. And for some people, like depending on how high you were drafted or how high you were rated, you're going to get more opportunities than other people. And then that's just sports. But every single year, there's new goalies coming in, plus the old crop of goalies that are former pros or former long-term American League guys or Coast guys that have really good years or European guys that are all fighting for your same spot. So it's so difficult to break in, and you really need to have like an organization like really push you to success. And you'll see that with a lot of guys and players and goalies and everyone, where guys will be pushed towards success, and sometimes they pop off and sometimes they don't. But the opportunities you get will come from like your play, obviously, and your hard work. But a lot of it comes to where does the organization see you and where do they want to peg you in that. And so like, probably the most disheartening thing for me, and I know when we had talked about like topics, we talked about the end of my career, but probably the most disheartening thing for me in my career was in my final exit meeting with the Jets. So I was going into, the year was over, my second year, because I had a 2-year entry level because I was an older guy. And I wanted to be like qualified. Like I really liked the organization, everything was great. And when I got called in, one of the things the GM said was, he said, Jamie, you did everything right. You earned an opportunity and we didn't give it to you. And for me, that kind of like just like shattered everything. And it was really unfortunate because for the 2 years that I was playing and developing, I was so incredibly hard on myself because I figured that like something is not right. I'm not doing something right in order for me to not get these opportunities. Like I was an East Coast All-Star, like first team my first year. Like I was played sick in the Coast. When I played in the American League, I was pretty good. I wasn't super great, but I was evenly matched with comms at the time in terms of statistics. So I figured that there must be something that I'm doing. So for 2 years, I beat myself down. And not once did anyone say like, Jamie, you're doing everything right. Just keep working. And if someone had said that, it probably would have changed everything. But when I had got to that meeting and they'd said I did everything right and I just wasn't given an opportunity, not that like everyone's entitled to one, but just if I had known that I was on the right path, that's what would have made the biggest difference. And so that was a really like a really disappointing and disheartening thing. And I think that was like really the big point in my career because I already was struggling kind of mentally in that year just because of how hard I was on myself. That was kind of the point where I was like, I'm pretty much done. So I ended up getting hooked up with a good mental coach who basically was able to extend my career another 2 years. So shout out to Bob Broden of Align Your Mind, because he did a lot for me. But to be fair, like most of the damage in my brain was done. Like I was over it at that point.
So like, would you say when you ended up retiring, what was like the Manitoba Moose Winnipeg Jets experience of you did everything right, you were hard on yourself, but they just weren't willing to give you an opportunity? Was that like the major, like, I guess, leveraging point to like, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm over this.
You know what? It probably was like the cherry on. Actually, no. There was a lot of things. So it wasn't just that. It was so many different things, and it was hard. That was a hard year. Getting called up and sent down, like living out of a suitcase, not having any you get sent down to the coast you practice, and then literally 5 hours later you have to fly all the way back because someone got hurt. And you were like, we got called up and sent down for less than 24 hours 3 times that year. I remember getting sent. That's my favorite road trip of the year was always like Milwaukee, Chicago, Iowa, and then we were going out to Texas. And that's my favorite one. I was looking forward to that. And someone just forgot to let me know. This was the only time they did it. They forgot to let me know that I was getting sent down. So I had prepared like I was going on the trip. Like I couldn't wait. And then I get to the practice and the goalie coach says like, "Hey, you ready to go back to Florida?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" And they're like, "Oh, no one told you?" And I just remember like having to practice, feeling like crap, having to pack all my stuff, call the taxi from the Iceplex. And I just remember crying the entire way from the Iceplex to downtown. I was talking to my girlfriend at the time on the phone, just like, I can't do this. Like, it was so hard. And then with that, the way the exit meeting was, and then going forward, I was trying to find the love of the game. I went to Florida, the Everblades, on a deal with Charlotte, and I was playing really well. But Carolina just kept grabbing goalies. They just kept adding goalies all year. And then they had another goalie in the system who was on a show deal, and I was on an American League deal, and he was on a weak team, and he wasn't playing super well. So they wanted to move him to a better team for the playoff push. So they ended up taking me and sending me to Reading, which was a weaker team at the time, just so that their goalie on a show deal could get more games. And so I went from being a really good, like having a good year, feeling good, living in one of the best places, like Estero, Florida, it's awesome, to all of a sudden I'm in Reading and like not in a playoff spot. We were going to go for a Clark Cup or whatever the championship is on the coast all of a sudden. And so it was just like everything that, and in terms of like how Europe turned out, where I ended up just getting released because I was making a lot of money and we weren't doing well. And so they wanted to cut salary. And so all these things, it just accumulated. And it was just like, mentally, I could not do it anymore.
I got to rewind you for a sec. So you're at the MTS Iceplex in Winnipeg. You hop on for practice with the Moose. And then Rick St. Croix, the goalie coach, tells you, did you not hear that you actually got sent down and you got to leave? Yeah,
and so, you know what? Honestly, the Jets and the Moose, like in terms of itinerary and organization and communication, other than, telling me I was doing the good thing, they were always spot on. But the one time that it happened, it just sucked because it was right before my favorite road trip, and I just didn't know. And so it was kind of like a smack in the face, and I was so bummed out. And I just bawled my eyes out. And what's crazy is, so I get sent down to Jacksonville, so it's a 2-day trip. I have to stay overnight in the airport, fly down, practice, go to walk to Walmart to get groceries, spend about $150 on groceries, come back, unload it, get a call as I'm unloading groceries. Hey, Hutch hurt his hip, you're coming back up. So now I just waste $150, and now I have to go all the way back, meet the team in Milwaukee, and then or like Chicago, or wherever they were, and it's just that emotional roller coaster. It really can wear and tear on you if you're not, if you're just a normal human being, it can just wear and tear on you.
Yeah, spend $8, get a cooler, bring all the food with you through the airport, no?
Yeah. I mean, oh my gosh. So that was happening like 3 times where I'd spent like over $100 on groceries, and I just got called up before I could eat even a single banana.
Like, what do? You just toss it out or give it to somebody else?
Yeah, I would just give it to my roommate. What am I going to do? Take it with me?
Well, 2017-18, you want to be Phillips' roommate. There's a good chance you're eating for free this month.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Hey, do you hear Phillips? He keeps getting called up and sent down. You got a room with this guy.
This guy's great, man. I haven't bought groceries in 2 months.
His mental health shit, but man, have I been eating good.
Legit, though, honestly.
And a good pair of underwear to keep cool, compartmentalized.
What a transition.
Comfortable, especially if you're the goalie for the Ottawa Senators. You're going to be like, holy shit, we got no back checking tonight. I'm going to put my dick in my balls, my cannolis, my bocconcinis, and a nice pair of sheath underwear. Here's why. They have an incredible dual pouch technology. It's a separated compartment to put all your manly parts where they need to go so they're not touching, sticking to the side of your leg. You don't have to like peel it off the side of your leg. It's compartmentalized, it's cool, it's comfortable with the bamboo mesh. And right now, sheath underwear, you go to the link in the video description. Use the code BISKIT69. We changed it back to the old code, by the way. It's BIZKIT 69, BISKIT69. We'll get you 20% off the greatest pair of underwear money has ever bought. And if you're tired of your father being disappointed in you like mine is, get a pair of sheath underwear and he will be proud of you once again.
And ladies, there's stuff for you there too, so don't think that you're being shut out on this one.
Big goaltenders versus small goaltenders. You're a big guy, 6'4", almost 6'5". I know we've talked in private just about how like your goalie right now at Michigan Tech, where you goalie coach for, Blake Pietila, best goalie in the NCAA. He's a short guy, only 5'10", struggling to get interest and get offers for pro. Big goalies, small goalies. Why are there no small goalies in the professional hockey ranks?
Yeah, so this is a very emotionally driven topic because it is disappointing for a lot of younger goalies because it seems like the bar has been set so high or it's unattainable. And so everything I do, I try to come at things with evidence and rationale and like, you know, try not to be emotionally charged. So being a goalie is the premise of being a goalie is very simple. It's take up the most amount of net. So a taller goalie will automatically take up the most amount of net. Okay, so that just is what it is. Then there are people who will say like, oh, well, taller goalies are always slow or taller goalies always use their body. And I think that's a weird kind of like fallacy where it's just like people in their brains think that. So ultimately, if a tall goalie is up here, so if you're listening, one hand's higher than the other. So if a tall goalie is up here and a smaller goalie is up here, in order to bridge the gap in terms of the amount of net taking up, the smaller goalie needs to be significantly better at every aspect of their game in order to bridge that gap. Whereas a tall goalie maybe doesn't have to be as good of a skater or as good of a tracker because they're just naturally taking up size. So you look at like someone like Robin Lehner, successful NHL career, big goalie, not the greatest skater, really good athlete, and that's okay. But then you look at, and then people will always be like, well, look at UC Soros and Dustin Wolf, they're small. Have you ever watched those guys play? They are so much better at everything than every other goalie, and that's what allows them to be able to succeed at that level. And that's okay. So if you're a smaller goalie, instead of, you know, feeling sorry for yourself, you have to work to build everything from skating, flexibility, to tracking, to reading the play. Every single attribute a goalie can have, you have to be better than a taller goalie at it. And that is just the reality. Just like if you're going to play in the NBA, if you're 6'3", you're going to have a hard time playing in the NBA unless you're like Steph Curry, who is absolutely money. And that's just the reality of it because you have an advantage. You have a physical advantage, so you have to be able to bridge that. And sorry if you're small, like you don't have to get mad at us. You talk to your parents, but that just is what it is. So it's not impossible for a smaller goalie to play at a high level. You just have to be very good at everything.
It's going to be one of the scariest things, though, the fact that a guy like Steph Curry, basically you or me at 6'3", 6'4", or in my case 6'5", we would be considered average, short, if anything, to play in the NBA. Meanwhile, we'd be short. We'd be short guys. We'd be too. Imagine that, me sitting down with Mark Cuban and him saying, listen, Trav, you're a little bit too short. You can't play on the team. Try to get a little bit bigger. Maybe put on some weight. Like, just mind-boggling. But back to the goaltending side of things, less than 5% of all men on this earth are 6'2" or taller. And that accounts for 90% of all the jobs in professional hockey. So to say, why do short guys not get the opportunity? Majority of every single goalie on the planet fits under that description of being a short goalie, but they're accounting for almost none of the jobs when they're most of the population. And I know you and I have talked about this just privately. Why would you take the same goalie at 5'10" when you can get the exact same thing at 6'4", at 6'5"? I can teach, let's say me, I'm by far from being the world's greatest goalie, but you can teach me to get in the right spot and get hit with pucks, as opposed to a small guy. You may already know that, but I can't make you bigger. You can't teach size. I know it's an old school dinosaur saying, but it's so true. You cannot teach size. You can teach goaltending, but not size.
And that's
reach.
Yeah, and so when you look at like high level goalies, like professional level goalies, so like Division I and like just good goalies, pro goalies, the skill level between them is very, very thin. The margin of difference is very thin. So if you have two goalies that are equal or about equal in skill, what is the differentiating factor? Height. And so you you take a taller goalie because everything in terms of professional sports, or the NHL at least, is potential. Who has the most potential to be successful? You can teach someone to skate. You can teach someone to track. You can build someone's ability to read the play. You cannot make someone physically taller. And so that's why the game is going that way. And it is an advantage for tall goalies, but smaller goalies is not like impossible. And the one thing I tell like all the small goalies I work with is small goalies succeed in Division I hockey and call NCAA hockey. So if you're a small goalie, you still have a great opportunity to play high-level college hockey. And then after that, shoot your shot, whether that's going to Europe or trying to make it in pro. It's not impossible. It is more difficult.
You make a good point too. I know we're talking about big versus small goalies, but also like this hip surgery, almost epidemic in goaltending, where guys left and right are getting their hips redone. I know I just got mine done 2 months ago, and I'm feeling better than ever. Do you have some thoughts on this? I know you're the goalie science guy in the community currently, but
yeah, goalie science guy. So it's actually plugged to the podcast. I do run a podcast called Goalie Science with a partner who's a doctor of chiropractic medicine, and is it an epidemic? I think so. And so I know in the podcast you had last week or whenever, a week ago when we're recording this, you guys had talked about how the butterfly had kind of caused all this, and it kind of is true. And so when it comes to like hip surgery and like FAI and stuff, some people are going to be naturally more prone to a cam or pincer or a mixed lesion or impingement, and that's just life. But when you look at goaltending, there's an excessive amount of internal rotation, so your hip rotating internally or towards the midline, and that's not the greatest position for your hips. It's not something like in physical therapy that we recommend you spend a lot of time in, but in goaltending you have to do it, and it's that plus the amount of force that the joints take over the cumulative period of time. And there's something, I believe it's Wolff's Law, I might have misquoted, but it essentially says that your bones are going to form to the demands that you place on them. So if you're a young goalie, you start being a goalie at like 7, 8, you're still growing. Your bones, for the most part, are I wouldn't say malleable, but they're going to adapt to the demands that are put on them. So being a butterfly and doing, T-push, shuffles, RVHs, butterflies for years and years and years there's no evidence yet because no one's ever studied it, but you could assume that it probably increases the likelihood of getting an impingement just because of the demands you put in your hip. And there's a great study out of Tobias Werner out of Sweden where he's probably the best goalie researcher we have right now, but he looked at SHL, Svensken, I think Division I, as well as the top 2 women's leagues. And basically it was like a 33% chance that your starting goalie is going to be injured at some point in the year with hip or groin problems. And it's just the position of sport. It's just like, why do pitchers always have to get Tommy Johns or have something wrong with their elbows? Because they're throwing repetitively. And so if your position or your sport requires something that's potentially harmful or dangerous, you're gonna have a lot of injuries. And that's just the nature of goaltending. And I know you had mentioned something about like an elevated knee block into butterflies, and I was listening to it while driving, and I was like trying to take my hands off the wheel, and I'm trying to like balance it out. I don't know what the solution is. The solution ultimately is like that we have right now is basically load management, not going too crazy in terms of how often we're having kids skate, butterfly, and all these sorts of things, and being able to have kids play like multiple positions and not specialize in goaltending from a super early age is probably the best defense we have against it. But there's a lot of things in it, so multifactorial that it's difficult to say what it is, but you are right, and you were a victim of it, whether that was just because you played for a while or you're just genetics, but that is what we see. Although I can say anecdotally, I am seeing more and more younger goalies being 12, 14, 13, 14, complaining of serious hip problems and then needing surgery. And I think that is more the issue, was these younger goalies are having a lot of pain and a lot of issues.
Yeah, I've been very fortunate where like I have found ways to kind of get around the impingement and the surgery that was needed for the last couple of years. Unfortunately, mobility and stretch only take you so far, and then you get to a point where okay, well, you're going to need steroids, and okay, that only takes you so far, and then it's like, well, I got to take some load management off and do less reps and be more, more protective of what I'm actually using my hip for. And then it just gets to the point where I got to in December and January this year, where it's like, I physically cannot do this anymore. I'm sorry. I've given you everything in the tank. We're running on fumes. I need to get this fixed. And, I know I'm only one apple in the study. And unfortunately, like, nobody in the community wants to talk about this because it's so like, oh my God, you got hip surgery. You're broken. But like, everybody's going through this. I was talking to an NHL goalie the other day, and he's like, dude, there's an epidemic. Every single goalie in this league needs surgery. The league doesn't care about us. They have us wearing these little paper thin knee stacks, these pants that force you to torque even more over into the RVH, especially when, like we mentioned, every goalie's 6'3", 4, and 5. You got these huge shins. You got to crank all the way over to seal the post properly with the best shooters in the world. It's an absolute epidemic going on. But like, these big guys are being set up to fail just because of like the demand being put on our bodies. I think too. One of the guys in the goalie community, I know you're not the biggest fan of him, but I've talked to my trainer about him. Shout out Brian Collins. There's a guy in the goalie community by the name of Goalie Force. I think he played some pro in Finland or whatever it was. But he makes these outrageous claims that you can't be a pro unless you can do the splits. You can't be a pro unless you can do a wide butterfly and sealed post to post. And listen, buddy, I would love nothing more than to be able to do a full Andre Vasilevsky splits, or steal the post, post to post in a reverse like a Bobrovsky or like a Spencer Martin. But like, some people are physically not able. I don't have those genetics. Yes, my surgeon helped me get a little bit closer, but making these claims that if you can't do this, you're never going to play pro or you're a failure, like, absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm going to circle back before we get into that part, but like, in terms of the FAI, or femoral acetabular impingement, there's a lot of good research coming out, or like Dr. John Schneider out of Resolve Physio in Ohio does like a really good hip management course for physical therapists. And one of the things, like, when you look at the studies, is around almost the majority of people with FAI really don't have pain or impingement. So like, a lot of times, like, I'll have kids message me and be like, hey, the doctor said I have FAI. And I go, well, are you in pain? They go, no. Is your range of motion limited? No. You don't have to worry about it. But that minority that you fell into are symptomatic, and you did whatever you can, and sometimes surgical management is the only option. There's definitely a ton of things you can do beforehand, and like, in terms of managing your game, but yeah, sometimes it is, but the vast majority of people with FAI are asymptomatic. And yeah, like, getting into the Goalie Force thing, like, I've been blocked for a long time, so I don't really know what goes on. And you know what, like, I don't know him. Maybe he's a great guy. I've actually seen one of my goalies does train with him, and in terms of goalie coaching, he probably is really good, and that's fine. But for me, as someone who is a professional, I'm going to be working in the medical profession. I'm a big believer in scope of practice, meaning that if you're a strength coach, you should stick to being a strength coach. If you are a goalie coach, you should stick to being a goalie coach. Like, I'm very open to the fact that I'm not a mental coach, and when goalies ask me about mindset and these things, I just say I don't know. Here's someone that does. And with him, like, you know what? If you have a training program or a mobility program, that's okay. But to say things that are objectively wrong, meaning that you're just completely ignoring science and basic anatomy, and saying things that could potentially be harmful to kids, that's where I get an issue, and that's why I called them out, because like, as someone who's a future physical therapist, I have a duty and a role to help people maintain health. It comes to dumb exercises and things, and if it's not going to hurt you, you can do whatever you want. You're not going to know an exercise is dumb until you make mistakes. Or if you're an adult, if you're 20, 30, and you want to do things that potentially put you at risk, that's okay. You're an adult. You have that prerogative. But to do things that could just say and promote things that potentially could hurt children, that's an absolute no for me, and that's you shouldn't do that, because that's honestly, it's unethical. And I'd spoken to him before I was blocked, and he had said that he believes that one's ability to stretch through the pain and discomfort is an indicator of how hard they're willing to work, and that's okay. I believe most people could probably stretch more and be a little more intense and have some discomfort, but not everyone will be able to do splits no matter what. And so if you're pushing through points of impingement or bone on bone, you're potentially harming yourself or causing damage. And that's if you're an adult, whatever, but don't say that to kids, man. And that was my issue. And I don't know. I haven't thought or talked about that guy. Just blocked me, like I said, and that's fine. And who knows what he's doing. But just don't say things that could hurt kids. And I think that's not an unrealistic thing to say. Just don't hurt kids.
Hey, if you enjoyed this video, hit the subscribe button. We do a new podcast every single Sunday during the season called Slangin The Bizkit. It is a non-mainstream hockey podcast, so we talk about my hockey career, the minor pros, all the stuff that you won't hear in the mainstream news,
Music,
pop culture,
politics.
Thanks for watching this video, and we'll see you soon.